I think we are ready to begin. Just to, I am Nurjahan Aziz. I'm the publisher at Mowenzi House, publisher of Caroline's book, and also the publisher of Gogo Olongwane, Dawn Promise Low, and Rosina Mart. Very happy that you're all here. Welcome everyone, people in Canada, people in South Africa, and I'm not sure if we have anyone else joining in from the US or Australia, but welcome everyone. We are here to launch Caroline van Rooyen's new book, ANY GIRL, which is really a YA book, YA novel set in Johannesburg in South Africa.
Pretoria.
I'm sorry, Pretoria. So the format is roughly like this. We will, Caroline will begin, with how she came to write this book, and she will read some passages from it. And then we will open up to questions and answers or comments from the audience. Just to also say that you can purchase the book from Amazon, from wherever you are, or you may also order the copies from our website, which Sabina will post in the chat very soon. Following the presentation by Caroline, if you have any questions, please, you can put them in the chat, or, you may raise your hand online and we will go through them one by one. So I think we're ready to begin. And Caroline, if you can please introduce yourself and tell us about the book.
Hi, my name is Caroline van Rooyen. I was born in the UK, in England. I was taken to South Africa when I was 10 years old. And then when I was 36 years old, I immigrated to Canada and been a Canadian citizen now for 25 years now. How did I come to write ANY GIRL? Well, I don't often talk about this, so I'm going to talk about it in as much detail as I'm prepared to, which is very little. I was sexually assaulted when I was 10 years old. It was a friend of my older brother's, and I was raised Catholic. And so the first place I went to, not knowing who to talk to, I went to a priest, a Catholic priest, and I went to a convent school. And all the priest did, obviously the priest was male, he said to me, oh, well, you've got to go and do a whole bunch of Hail Marys and Glory Bees and Our Fathers and that kind of stuff. And I thought, why is he making out that I had done something wrong? I just need to point out, sorry, I had cataract surgery, and so my eyes have twitches and everything else in them at the moment, so sorry about that. So when I also tried to raise it with a teacher, and the teacher's reaction was very simple as well. It's just, we don't want to talk about that. It's not something we talk about. It made me step back. And what I started doing, of course, I'm a kind of a strange child, I suppose, is I stepped back, but I started listening. I started tuning in. I'm 10 years old, so I'm not tuning in and fully understanding what everyone is saying, but I'm writing down what everybody says. And I started writing down, if people mention it, I'd write it down. And I kept a diary on all the things that people would say when they referred to sexual assault or rape. And I got the picture. I maybe didn't fully understand what they were saying, but I got the meaning. I got the meaning, which was, you keep quiet, you don't rock the boat, and things will be worse for you if you speak up, and that no one is there for you. No one is going to care for you. It's going to get worse for you if you speak up about it. So I never spoke up about it. I didn't until I was about 26 years old, and my body decided it was something I was going to think about, and I actually had a breakdown, and I didn't know why. And then it all came up, what had happened and how it had never been dealt with. But what I then went back to is, I went back to my notes and I went back to writing, and that's how ANY GIRL came about, because it came out from that conversation, those things that I heard, those snippets that I had heard. and I was trying to understand them and work them into how does it affect me. Moving on then to the themes in my book, and I have really struggled to try to just stay on a couple. So I'm trying to time myself because I was given a time limit on this. The first theme is power, obviously, because sexual violence is about power. And what, because I studied it as a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old in words, and I was listening to it in the language, I find that language has a power dynamic. The words we speak reflects the power dynamic in our culture. And I watch movies and I notice how at the very beginning of a movie, a man will always say something to put down a woman, right at the beginning of every movie. It's almost like just a acknowledgement to the viewers that we understand the power dynamics in this movie. I listen when people say things, and I listened to a whole CBC radio program once about missing and murdered Indigenous women, and not once did they say men. They never once mentioned the word man. And so you have statements like, she got herself pregnant, or she got herself raped. And somehow you've got this language that has the invisible men. There's no men rape, men murder. And then this was brought back to me even more so when a 10-year-old girl gave me a perspective. You know, when you have that paradigm shift that you've never had before, she came up to me and she said she had been listening in to the TV and to people around her, and she had discovered that girls just disappear. And she's 10, she's in concrete operational thought. So she said she's really nervous because what happens if she's playing or she's walking down the street and suddenly, poof, she just disappears? And how do you know if you're just going to disappear? Does it come on you? Is it just certain women? Which of the girls who just disappear, that they're always talking about girls just disappear? And I thought, this is the problem with our language right now. Our language has invisible men. So instead of saying a man murdered this woman and now she is dead and gone, or a man abducted this girl and now she is dead, we say girls disappear. And 10-year-old girls and 8-year-old girls not in abstract thought, hear this and they think, wow, we could just suddenly disappear off the earth. And they don't know why, because our language doesn't put men in the middle of the crimes that they do. It's trying to still blame women for the crimes that men do. And we don't think about the effect that language has on our little girls, because it makes our little girls scared because no one's explaining it to them. So a power dynamic. And so I wanted to read an extract where I was trying to fix that. And whenever I'm out there, and I'm very annoying on this, but I don't want to talk about invisible men anymore. When I speak a sentence or I say something, if there's a man in it, I'm going to put the man in the sentence. So I'm going to read, first of all, from, it's on page 39. And July and David are walking down the driveway. And David says to July, have you decided on the Andie thing? He fakes moderate interest. I put him out of his misery. Andie is home. How do you know? He comes close and his eyes bore down on me. I speed up, forgetting he has longer legs than me. Is she okay, he demands? No, she was raped. I speak to the air in front of me and keep moving. He walks 6 paces before my words sink in. Then he grabs my arm. I freeze, shake off his hand. He lets go. I start walking. He's next to me like a persistent fly. Who did it? He asked. I stop. He stops. Who? That's easy. A male. Like you. One of your kind. You. He's outraged. Hey, don't you blame me. Not that, not me. I step in front of him now, making him stop. Definitely you. You and your kind. Don't stop the rapists among you. You cover for them. You talk about girls as boobs, bums, and honeypots, just body parts, not people, not human beings, not worthy of respect or kindness, then you disown the consequences. You, and I mean you, are definitely to blame. So, first example of one of my themes, which is power, runs through the book. A second of my themes, and I didn't know whether to do this first or afterwards, but I have a theme of death in the book. And I put it front and center with July's mother dying and the loss of that to her, and how she loses her point of stability and she goes in search of a new point of stability. And but the bigger concept for me of death in the book is the death of this concept in our culture that says innocence, the death of innocence. And I see innocence, I was trying to think of a way to describe it. I see the word innocence in our language as whenever someone says innocence, they think sex, okay? And then they go from sex, and if you go from sex, you go to gender. And when you go from gender, then you go to that huge rainbow split up of gender with men at the top and women at the bottom and everything in between. And so when I see the word death of innocence, which is how I was perceiving it, and that's how I perceive it, it's, and I'll give you an example because I've been a high school teacher. They always tell me that girls, when they get to the age of 14, 15, become so rebellious and they're so angry, and everybody rolls their eyes, and they all agree that girls at the age 14, 15 are just the worst. And my concept of that is the death of innocence. The death of innocence for girls when they move out of concrete operational into abstract thought, talking cognitively, is that they suddenly realize in the structure of gender, they fit the lowest rung. There's a very narrow space for them where they are supposed to slide into and accept being objects, being passive, being the worker bees, being the silent ones, to support this whole structure of the culture as it is now. And going back, if I link that into power, then there's sexual violence, there's physical intimidation, there's threatening by men to hold them in that position. If you don't believe me, ask any female politician or any politician who has the right to speak, or they think they have the right to speak. Okay, what comes at them from our culture. And it's around age 14 and 15 where girls suddenly get that aha, oh my, this is the world, this is where they're supposed to fit into it. And so in my book, July is never going to go quietly into that dark night, okay? If the culture tells her to turn left, she's going right. If the culture tells her to go up, she's going down. She's there to actually question the narrow gap that girls wake up and go. They're like horses being put into the you know, when I go for a starter race and you're trying to put a horse into those narrow things and the horse goes, no, 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 no. That is why, I feel that is why they rebel. Girls just say, no, I'm not going there. I don't want to go there. I do have a reading from that. Just tell me if I'm going over time. From page 124. And it's to do with this whole power dynamic. Who thinks they have the right to do what? And it's one where I bring Chris Harrods onto the scene with David. And there's Katiwe and Lily and July, and they're down in the garages. And Chris says, come on, Davy, forget July. Let's bag these honeys and leave the feral cat alone. They don't like bags. No, I came for all three. Chris growls in frustration. What does that mean? Katiwe asks. You came for us? What are you two up to? Katiwe is also here? Now I get it. They chose to stick with me even though I explained the danger. They put the team first. They are team players. Again, their concern for me warms my heart. They are right. We must stay together. I stand up and walk over to them. Chris whistles. Speak of a fright night. Here's the lead non-honey zombie. Davy boy, we have a full house. Let's throw them in the car and vie. Job done. Answer Katiwe, I tell David, easing my hoodie further over my head in case anyone looks our way. Why are you here? What are you two up to? We've come to take you away. Let's go. We've got Penny's car. David sounds like he believes he's handing out free money and we want it. Who died and left you in charge? Katiwe asks. Lily and I glare at him until he finally registers that we're not eager, grateful Labrador puppies ready to jump into his car and go for a walkies. What? No, wrong. You got it all wrong. Listen up. This is a rescue mission. This is a good thing. There's a rapist here. I don't want to be blamed if anything happens to you like with Andie. Folks said I should have protected her. So here I am protecting you by taking you home. You listen up, I say. We planned to be here. We came with Lily's brothers. Did Peter come with you? He's dressed in a rugby tracksuit and dirty runners, even worse party clothes than mine. Chris looks like he's wearing pajamas, but then no one expects more of him. Maybe their rescue story is true. Maybe it's a great deception. What? Peter? No, I don't know. I didn't hear his plans. I came to get you to safety and then get home before my dad finds out I'm AWOL and bans me from playing tomorrow. Chris offered to supply the car. Please come. I don't have much time. He points to the car. Chris jingles the keys. I resist the urge to grab them and throw them over the fence. Let Chris go fetch. It'll take his mind off us. David, you don't decide what we do, Lily says as she walks over to me. Katiwe follows her. David looks bewildered. But July said men have to stand up against rapists. This is me doing this. Don't you want to be looked after? Lily sighs loudly. Katiwe rolls her eyes and I shake my head. He looks at me. What? It's a great offer. We're not buying what you're selling. Let me explain. To fight a rapist, you need to stand in front of a rapist. Is the rapist one of us girls? I wait until he shakes his head. Well then, why are you here? Don't lock girls up because there's a rapist about. Lock him up. If you make girls hide away, then you give rapists an excuse. They see a girl outside and believe they can rape her for being outside. Okay. Sorry. How much time have I got? Where's Sabrina? How am I doing? Okay, I've got a third theme that is friendship. And it's not quite, again, it's not quite what you think of it because I was an immigrant child in South Africa. So I came there with a British accent, British clothing, British parents, British everything else. And I've been an immigrant coming here. And also I was an Air Force child. My father was in the RAF and then the South African Air Force. So we moved every 18 months to 2 years. So I know what it is to be the new kid, always the new kid. And I know that when you get there, you have a plan. I always had a plan. I was like, I always like to have my grades really, really high. I like to play the sports that I'm going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into sports teams, which means I'm going to knock out people who are going to be upset with me. So that's going to be one of those things. And I know I also run under the wire until I find out who's nice and who's not nice. I have a way of doing that. I can sit in the library. I could sit somewhere. I have plans. I know how to survive being new. And I also discovered that I was doing things like, I know when I'm prepared to negotiate in a friendship, so I can join a group as long as it asks certain things of me, but if it asks a different thing of me, I don't want to be part of that friendship. So my question with friendship is, for me, friendship is something I think about, I decide, is it worth it? What is the value for it? What does it give me? What is it requiring of me? It's not something I just feel like I absolutely have. I will give up everything to be a friend. I'm not in that zone. Maybe my upbringing. So I was going to read about an unlikely friendship because Katiwe and Lily are not likely friends of July. July is poor. July comes from a single mom. July lives in Sunnyside. There's no ways Lily and Katiwe would have anything to do with July in normal life, but they go to the same school because someone is funding July. So I'm going to read from page 50, if I can find that one. Is it number 4? The nerves are just kicked in. I just started shaking. So sorry. All right. So July is in the East Quad because she's feeling safe there. And Katiwe and Lily stroll together into the quad. They look around, spot me, and head straight over. I am instantly on my guard. Do they know I spied on them or that I put Andie in the stranger's car? They sit down on either side of me and I feel trapped. Here you are, Katiwa says, as if ending a game of hide and seek. We've been looking all over for you. Don't you usually go to the media center? Anyway, not important. We found you. She seems very pleased with herself. Rumor has it she is Zulu royalty. Blue blood makes her stick up her nose at everyone. I'm surprised she knows my name. I want to ask you a question, Lily says, setting a more serious tone. Lily is a sweet Maltese poodle and Katiwa her hungry caracal friend. However much you want to pat the Maltese, you know the caracal will savage your outstretched arm. Andie was the spaniel in the group, dewy-eyed, floppy-eared, and cute. Lily continues, we think you're the exact right person to help us find who attacked Andie. I avoid eye contact and study the windows in the wall opposite. You see, Katiwa adds, if we know who he is, we can stay away from him. So will you help us? No one has to know. She nods at me like the deal is done. She speaks and I obey. Did I mention Katiwa has bright red hair that she wears in a big round bubble? She's as inconspicuous as a fire engine. Lily has blue eyes, long braided blonde hair, pale skin, and boys dance around her like a bee around a hive. No, thank you. Staying alive takes all my time. I don't need these two added to my worries. Please, July, just hear us out, Lily says. We're in danger. You are too. We need you. She's got a point. I'm alone, and alone means vulnerable. They say there's safety in numbers. I need a group. If you're walking in a direction and someone walks with you, you have company. Maybe not a friend, but still company. If a lion appears and you run faster, the lion eats the company. I ask, you have lots of other friends. Why me specifically? You get around a lot, meet all types of people. People we don't know, Katiwa says. Don't believe the rumors, I retort. Katiwa flicks at her hair and says airily, well, you live in Sunnyside. That's a very cosmopolitan suburb, all those tall blocks of flats. If you mean poor, then that's true, but how does that help you? Well, among all those people, you've probably seen some rapists, Katiwa says. You can tell us what they look like. There must be an ism that describes people who despise the poor. Wealthism, poorism. I don't know, but an example of one is standing right in front of me. I'm not ashamed of being poor or living in Sunnyside. I stand up, collect my bag, and walk down the corridor. French. I don't know where have I used up my time?
Yes, well, I think we can open up to the questions and answers from the audience.
Okay.
So please, if anyone has any questions, raise your hand or ask the question in the chat.
I gotta try and work out the chat.
Or any comments.
Okay. Yes, Rosina. I can't hear you, sorry.
I think Gugu also has a hand up and I'm just, okay. So I got, I think I cut out for about 3 minutes. So I'm not sure if you raised this, but I wanted to know, I'm curious and interested as to how July got her name. What was the decision around? I missed about 3.5 minutes. I cut out, so yeah.
No, July is called July because her father's name, who is a very invisible figure and who doesn't actually show up for a very, very long time, his name is Julius. His name is Julius Stedman. And so her mom called her July after her dad. I know lots of people say, oh, is it really Julie? And no, it's July. It's a feminism of Julius rather than Julia. I didn't like Julia. I went with July.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm interested for a number of reasons. So in the Cape, which is where I'm from District 6, the enslaved community, which is what I'm part of, got named after the month of the enslavement. So my grandmother's history is Bengali, Javanese, and their surname, my grandmother's surname was September, and my grandfather's surname was March. So there were no Julys. There was basically Agustus, or like August in Dutch, August, September, October, November. And then there was, I think, January, February, and March. But Nadine Gordimer used July for a title called July's Children. So I was curious if it has a deeper South African historical meaning.
I really enjoyed Nadine Gordimer's July's People. It's July as well, because July is mixed race. I don't want to say what mixes of race she is, because I wanted it to be more open than being a fixed race, because South Africa is so fixed on, you say a race, and there's so much baggage that comes with each race in South Africa, that when I wrote the book, I decided I wanted July to try to be almost more fluid. But her name was July, and that, as you say, that name actually has connotations in South Africa. I made her last name Abraham, which again has connotations in South Africa. And even when we were talking about the book cover, the first cover was definitely too racial for me. And Nurjihan, I will say this, and I said, no, I want the silhouette to be more fluid in its race. I don't want to be, because race is such an issue. But July is of mixed race. Her mom, I don't specify, her mom is white. I don't specify anything about Julius Stedman. People have said to me, are you going to write a second book who Julius Stedman is? Because they're very curious about him. And it's, I don't know, I'm kind of nervous about fixing him, because then that then fixes July, and then that places her into a very boxy space, which I don't want for her.
Okay, I think I'm going to stop for now. There are other people, I'm sure, who ask you much more interesting questions. So thank you for your response.
So, Lisa?
Hi. And just so the last lady who spoke knows, I thought that was a very interesting question. Yes.
Oh, okay.
I'm more from the healthcare world as opposed to the literary world, but I found a question came up mostly after I finished reading this amazing book. Caroline, what did you learn in creating this masterpiece, if I may?
What did I learn from it? In a sense of myself, I learned that I could produce a character who goes counterculture as much as possible. And I could give voice to the amount of violence that is perpetrated on girls and women that we tend to look away from. And I'm sure nurses and doctors see it.
Very much.
And I know that July's mom, being a nurse, saw it. And so however much our culture tries to make it invisible and hides it, when you're in the actual emergency rooms of hospitals, you see it. You see the beaten up woman from the domestic violence. You see, there's a case right now here of a 6-week-old baby who was raped, sexually violated. I mean, it never stops. And I feel like I finally had a chance to actually give voice to something that as a child, it scared me. I did not want to grow up. If this was the world I had to grow into, I did not want to grow up into this world. So writing the book showed me that I might not have had a voice to speak, but I could speak by writing. And that is why I have fought so hard to have it published.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Caroline, Gugu has her hand up.
Awesome. Yeah, there are lots of hands here. Hi, Gugu.
Hi, thank you so much. I just recently got your book, but I read it in very greedily. And the pacing of the novel sweeps you up right away from the very beginning. I thought the
Thank-
pacing is as unrelenting as July, who keeps her eye on the prize, which is nailing the rapist. She can't even let up because the stakes are too high, the price on her head. But I also found that she's quite hard on herself, though almost a perfectionist, who must get it right for the greater good. I found that weight on this poor little 15-year-old girl so heavy on her. I also wanted to say that I love the ending at the compound on top of the hill. And that compound, I think, stunningly illustrates both the proximity and the socially sanctioned untouchability of misogyny. The tunnels that July navigates around are the tunnels of sexist structures that will take a whole lot of effort and risk to dismantle. And the fact that the kids are the foot soldiers of this fight is both heartbreaking and fitting given the future that lies before them. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed reading this brutal book.
Well, thank you, Gugu, because from teaching high school and from being a 10, 11, 12-year-old woman myself with this on me, I honestly feel like women, we grow from girls, we grow with this weight on us, this awareness on us. We are. And what we also do is we then, as girls, we look ahead and we look at our moms and we look at our grands and we say, how is this our future? And if we're lucky, we can look into a future where we maybe see a professional woman or a strong woman, but we also always see a woman who's trying to balance doing the laundry, doing the cooking, doing the shopping, doing the cleaning, doing the caring work, doing the think work and the planning work. And we see tired women, and we see women who are just never seem to have that 5 hours to go play a game of golf every Wednesday and every Saturday and go play sport all the time and sit down in front of the TV for 5 hours and watch a hockey game. How did they get all that time and we didn't get it? These are what we see. We're not blind as girls. We know what's there. And I wanted to, when I talk to people about my book, I say we need to fight, and we need to fight together. We need to come together and fight. So many times we in our individual houses looking after our individual families, and we stay apart and we feel guilty coming together, whereas men have never had that problem. They've always had their men's clubs and their sports clubs and their free time, and they get together, and we need to start getting together as well. So thank you, Gugu. I really appreciated that. All right, next hand up. I can't see all the hands. Okay.
I think Tammy has her hand up.
Tammy?
Thank you, Caroline, for your vulnerability and your courage to share and to write the book. And I wholeheartedly agree that it's so important, like the message of your book, and to be able to have the discussions, the conversations. I'm really sorry that your experience was to hide and to, shut down when you were young and reaching out for help. And I found it's so interesting that after reading your book, I just felt so encouraged to want to reach out to other women. And even in our society today, there's still so much resistance to even read your book. I thought, what a great book study that we could have together with other women who could share and learn and grow about this, and yet I'm here in Canada with you, and it kind of shocked me, especially as we're coming through like that, the whole Me Too movement and whatnot. I thought that there might be more openness around this topic, and yet there still is not, and how sad that is. And so I have a 19-year-old son and I have a 12-year-old daughter, and the book that you have written is really meaningful, really valuable, and it's going to keep the conversation going at our house and helping me to talk about these things with my kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. And yeah, it's I don't know if anyone knows that, but I actually have friends who say they refuse to read it. They don't want to get involved in it. And I was thinking another theme of my book, and that July is always pushing against, is that it's not just people who are actively against you, but there's a lot of people who have given up. The fight has hurt them, or it looks too difficult, or it's unsafe to get involved in this fight. And so they are frozen in their place. And if they see anybody trying to fight the fight again, go up against trying to make this power dynamic in our world equal again, they also pull you down. They just said, no, we're not prepared to read it. We're not prepared to talk about it. No, we don't do that. And I was like, oh my goodness, how do you do that one then? I don't know. So thank you, Tammy. Really appreciate that. Dawn.
Hi. First of all, congratulations on your book. It's a great achievement, and I read it. Also, very quickly, I was quite riveted. I think, you know, in literary terms, it's quite a page turner, and I literally couldn't put it down. I just wanted to find out what happened next at a very basic level, and of course, that's a difficult thing to do in itself. I've appreciated very much all the comments and questions of the other participants. Thank you, and I also wanted to say thank you for writing this book, Caroline. I mean, I'm sort of heartbroken to hear that the story that you know, where the book came from was actually a real personal experience. That just makes it much worse, you know, than it already is as a subject, because of course it does happen to real people. It's not just a subject out there in theory. So I appreciated hearing that, even though I'm sorry to hear that. And yeah, I mean, I think it's the courage of you writing this book, and the courage of the July, the character that she shows, which of course is her almost primary personality trait, is her courage and persistence. You know, is inspiring. And I also thought, just as a last thing, I just thought it was very vivid, your depiction of a group of teenagers in a high school. Of course, I believe you're a high school teacher, so you would know that, but I found it very vivid and quite fascinating, you know, to enter this world of young people, teenagers actually. I mean, I'm obviously very far away from a teenager. So to go back into that very frightening place where you're a teenager and all these things and the power dynamics that are happening, and especially if you're a teenage girl. So I just found that very interesting and vivid, actually. So I'll think about that for a while, I think. And thank you for writing the book.
Thank you so much, Dawn. Yeah, I did. That was one of the reasons I went to 3 different high schools because of moving around. And I know that every single, I've got at least friends in every single one of those high schools who bought the book to read it to see if they were in it. And so I had to say a couple of the teacher descriptions, but they were more composite descriptions. And there's one boy in it who plays a very small role, but he's always there. Represents a boy who was in one of my classes very well.
Not the rapist, I hope.
No,
he was a police, yeah.
There's a character, I don't know if you even paid any attention to him, but I drop him in every now and then because he's so weird. His name is Kevin. And I had to put him in there because he's just such a weird boy. And I just wanted that full rainbow of man in there, just the full rainbow, from the ultra weirdos to the boys who just playing sport and don't think about anything else, don't realize that what they're doing is still hurting. You know, playing their sport is still misogynist because sport isn't even playing ground either. I mean, it's so simple that our Canadian gold-winning women's soccer team still has to play on AstroTurf, and the boys who went in and bombed out completely got to have all this wealth and money and got to play on grass. I mean, come on, there's no equality even in sport. So if you say, oh, I'm not involved in that because I play sport, it's like, yeah, if you play sport, you're involved in it. Sorry, moving on. Thank you, Dawn. Really appreciate that. Oh, I see your hand there. Odessa.
Sorry, trying to juggle many things. And
I know
only...
you've got to type. Odessa's just had a baby, so I mean, she's amazing that she's here. Just had a baby.
What have I done now? Okay, I can't see you anymore, but I'm wondering, you can hear me, right?
Yes, I can.
Okay, how have I lost you? There, okay. This is your first published book, but you've been writing for a while, and I don't know if it's always in a young adult perspective, but just hearing you talk about the themes of your book now, I feel like you have so much more to say on the topic and different ways you could go in directions. You also mentioned the possibility of a second book for these characters. So I'd be curious to know if that's something you're actually actively pursuing or thinking about. But my main question is, do you see yourself being in the young adults specialization forever, or would you like to take on some of these topics at in a different way? Because I would be curious to see you explore them for a different audience.
Well, once Mawenzi had taken on ANY GIRL, I started writing something completely different. Not for YA, but and not based in South Africa, but based in the Camrose Daysland area. So I've been working on that for ages, and I'm having fun with that. And then because so many people said to me, "What happens to July? What happens to Kitiwe and Lily?" About 6 months ago, I sat and I try to hear them. I try to figure out, where would they be now? What kind of woman would they be, having been through that experience? And that was really, really hard to find who are you on the other side of that experience? How do you pick up your life, and what parts of your life do you pick up, and what parts of your life do you leave behind? My daughter keeps on saying, they've got to still be friends. They've still got to be friends. And I'm like, is that true? And so I have been exploring. I've written down, I don't know, I do it in bits and pieces. I get an idea and I write that down, and I get a question. You can't see my workspace here, but it's just covered in sticky notes. And I get an idea and I put that down, and then I write about that, and eventually I'll figure it out. So I don't see myself as frozen in the YA world, because the second book I'm writing, I'm more frozen in, not frozen, I'm more given to topics that really set me on fire, and topics that really speak to me. And something happened when I lived in Camrose that had really jiggled me at the back of my head for ages and ages. And that's what my next book, my adult book, is about. But I have gone back to July and Kitiwe and Lily, and I'm trying to figure out who they are after this experience. What would have happened to them? What path do they walk now? And more than that, I can't write a book just on characters, or people say, well, you got to tell us who July's dad is. It's got to have an encounter. I have to have a reason why I'm writing a book. There has to be a reason why. I've got a book on my shelf from the BAM Center for the Arts. It says, why are you telling me this? So when I write a book, I'm always trying to answer the question, why are you telling me this? So yeah, thanks, Odessa.
So I'll have to watch for the Camrose one to see if I know of any of the characters.
There we go again. So just a bit of background. Odessa is one of my field hockey players, because I always played hockey for myself. I played club hockey in South Africa. I came here and I coached the under 18 Alberta Zone 4 team, and we won gold in 2006. So yeah, I one of my really favorite things that I love is coaching girls sport. It's just an amazing, it's amazing. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes, Gugu.
I wanted to know what you found particularly interesting about a white rapist or white rapists in a country where we hear so much about Black rapists.
Because my experience is that rape has got nothing to do with race. It has nothing to do with finances or income. It is a crime of control. It is a crime of power. Even boys as young as 12 and 13, when they were expanding into their teenage years and they realize how they get so much freedom and freedom to do what they like, and people will look the other way, and people will say, oh, you got a notch on your belt. The freedom that is given to boys being boys is universal across across any kind of division that you would have to have. Women from everywhere are facing the same assault. So it is not a crime it's not a race crime in any way, shape, or form. And I didn't want it to be there.
Thank you. And so would you say that it's not a typically South African story then? Just as it can happen to any girl, can it also happen anywhere?
It is unfortunately true across the entire world. It's true in South. I don't know if you've been watching the news in England, where that police officer of 30 years has raped almost 49 women. And even though they registered complaints about it, no one took them seriously. And now they say there's about 800 police officers who have had similar complaints put against them. And the British police, Metropolitan Police, have done nothing about it because they didn't want to look that way. So I wrote it because my experience had been South Africa, and rape is huge in South Africa, but rape is huge in Canada. 3 out of 5 Canadian women will have been sexually assaulted by the time they're age 30. That is a statistic that you can download, okay? There's rape everywhere. And if you want to go to institutionalize men allowed to hurt women and it's okay, let's look at Afghanistan. Let's not coat this. As I say in my book, there has been no war fought to protect the rights of 50% of this world. So what's going on in Afghanistan towards the women of Afghanistan should be a war. You know what I mean? There should be a war going to protect the rights of those citizens, and there isn't. The whole world is like, oh yeah, it's just whatever, we don't care.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline.
Thanks, Gugu. Can't see any hands. Am I missing something?
Okay, Gail Winston. Gail, thank you.
Carolyn, thank you so much for your book. I have not read it yet, but I will soon. But I was really moved by your insight about young girls who read something or hear something, understand the word, but actually don't understand the territory that comes with it. And so I am wondering, have you had any reaction back from girls who have read your book?
That has been the most amazing part of, I've been going out and sitting at tables in the Indigos and chapters in the greater Edmonton area. And it was very unexpected, but girls do come up to me, and there's 2 that spoke to me the most. I have come home crying from these encounters, so just, they are quite tough. But the one spoke to me, this girl, she had been a gymnast in the Canadian gymnastics team, and her coach had raped her. And she had heard about my book, and she came and she read my book, and she came to me in Sherwood Park, and she wanted to thank me for writing the book, that she could then speak about it and speak out about it. She said she did get support from the police when they took her statements, but she said she has always felt that somehow she was now tainted, that somehow she had done something wrong. And there was still that fear in her as well when moving forward, that she lived on an unsafe planet now, even though people would think, what, Alberta, Canada, gymnast? No, it's everywhere. And then the second encounter I had was a mom, and this was in St. Albert's, and a mom came in and she actually took my book. She read the back of my book. She went off and she sat down in a chair in the corner, and I watched her for about 2 hours, and she was like speed read my book. Then she came back and she flopped down in the chair in front of me, and she just started crying. And she said, I sent my daughter off. She wanted to go to school in BC. She wanted to go to the U of BC. And it was her first year at the U of BC, and she was raped. And she was raped by someone on her residence floor. And she said that her daughter is shattered. Her daughter is and they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go, because their little precious girl who they sent off to the university that she wanted to go to is now broken, and they don't know what to do. And the mom she just broke her heart there. Yeah. And those are just two of the stories. Sorry. I have heard so many stories while sitting there signing books and selling books. That this is a pandemic of its own, an epidemic of its own. And I feel like our moms didn't do anything to stop it for us, and our grandmothers haven't done it. And are we gonna pass it still on to our children? How much further does this pain for women have to keep going? Sorry.
No. Sorry.
No, it's a good question. It's a true question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Caroline. Thank you so much. It was really very interesting, very illuminating, to so many people. Thank you, everyone, for joining in today. And I think our time's up, and we will wrap up this session. But a warm thank you to everyone for joining in. I would also like to thank Sabrina and Caitlin for handling all the logistics of this event. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining. And I initially thought no one was going to be here. I thought my book was too controversial. So thank you so much. You really have made it terribly special for me. Thank you. It's really good.